We're here at Pablo Island Museum with Randy Seton. It's March 31st, 2014. Our first question is, what is your earliest memory of the island?
My first memory would have to be when I was about 3 years old, because I remember learning to swim on the east bayfront of Little Island, right by the public pier. And my parents, they said, you just wouldn't stay out of the water, and they said, the kid's trying to swim and he doesn't know how. So they taught me how to swim when I was really young. And that was it. I became just a pollywog. I couldn't get me out of the water. And we had neighbors that lived, their mother had a house on Abalone Street on Little Island. And when we lived in LA, they'd always load the kids in the car and go down and stay at Grandma's house. And they had sailboats. They were all sailors, so they took me along as ballast and for racing and stuff. So that's why I learned to sail when I was really young. So that was really fun too. So I was always there, and then the fishing came, and the paddle boards and all that. So then my parents always liked coming down to Pablo Island too.
So your grandmother's house was here?
No, it was my friend's grandmother's
Their
house.
friend's grandmother's
my neighbors.
house.
We lived in LA at the
I
time.
see. When did you move here?
1961.
Great. What street did you move to?
First house, my parents rented a place it was on Balboa Avenue and Coral. It's still there to this day. And as my mother wanted to buy it, they bought a restaurant here on Main Street. It was called the Cape Cod House. Norton's Cape Cod House. They had a few restaurants in Orange County, I think, and maybe one in LA. And then my mom slowly changed it to Amelia's restaurant. And it's been the family ever since.
So you would say your move was really strategic for a business person? Is that?
Then my mom wanted to get us out of LA. She didn't like what she saw up there.
So,
and the kids loved the beach. And my mother was from Italy. She's a war bride.
wow.
And their family also had a restaurant on the Isle of Capri. It's still there to this day. It's over 70 years. And so it kind of just, I guess that was that thing for her. She had to be on an island and have a restaurant. And, you die to have this weather because it was so smoggy in LA.
Right.
So we loved it when we came down here.
What was your first memory moving here? So in '61, what were your thoughts?
I probably have to say, the first day you go to the bus stop, your first day at school, and meet all the kids on the corner, and everybody gets to know each other, and you're meeting new people. And on the weekends, when the weather was nice, most of the kids then, the big thing was to get a drop line from the hardware store in a bucket and go down and catch smelt and perch off the public pier, and it'd just be like a row of kids sitting on the pier with buckets and with drop lines, catching smelt and fish, and if a boat came, they'd all get out of the way and then go back. And then you look for seashells and put glitter on them and sell them to the tourists.
Great. Why would you say Balboa Island has such a special place in your heart?
I would just have to say, it's something it's real hard to talk about. It's just it's what I miss is all the people you've met, the families and the kids and the old timers and the guys that worked on boats and the surfers. Balboa Island had a lot of service people that lived here. What I mean is there was a lot of rentals. They were cheap. You could get a little granny thing for a couple $100 a month or $90 a month. And so you had all this color down here. It was really, of people and huge amounts of families. When you walk down the bayfront, it was, hello, Mr. So-and-so, hi, so-and-so, hi, how you doing? Hey, come in for have a pop or something. Or want to go on the boat and go bonita fishing. So there was a lot of community continuity, and the beaches were packed. And that was fun. And so I would say that getting to know everybody by name, and when you drive down the street, everybody'd say hi to each other, or walking up and down the bayfront. So,
do you think that holds true to today? I think there's a sense of community here.
What's I'm kind of emotional about, because it's, It's like everybody you'd loved, they died. So, give me a minute here for a second. It's just brought back, it's just endearment, you know.
Yeah.
It's a lot of love. So that's, and then you have a lot of course, a lot of old friends. You know, I had friends that, you know, when we went to school and surfed together. I mean, it's like you come home from school. My mom didn't drive, but other kids' parents. That's when Doheny was still big. It was like Waikiki. And they'd load you in a station wagon, 7 or 8 surfboards and 8 kids, little towhead surfer kids. And you go down to Doheny and there'd be like 500 people out surfing. And off you go. And it was just magic. You know, it was fun.
Did you participate in some of the fellow yacht clubs, or some of your family members, were they part of that training?
No, my parents were never in a yacht club. I just went as crew mostly. The closest thing that I could relate to would be the Pablo Island Yacht Club. I was really never a member, but I used to have friends that were in it, and I was just a, you know, non-stop surfer at the time, so you didn't have time for that, you know.
Sure.
But if the wind was blowing and the surf was flat, you'd certainly go sailing. That was fun. I didn't get into the yacht clubs till I was in my 20s as a junior skipper, where I was racing a lot. So I used to have my own sailboats and race, and I became a professional captain and raced IOR boats and private yachts. So that was fun. You could actually get paid for what you love to do.
Right.
You know, the people like, that was a good gig. You know?
I'm sure. How has the bay changed with its landscape of boats throughout the years?
Well, when we were kids, I remember, you know, you'd go along the bayfront, we'd make these spears with, you know, you'd steal somebody's broomstick and cut off the end, and then go to the hardware store and get a trident head spear, they call it. It's like this thing with all these, you know, forked ends on them. And you get some tubing, they call it surgical tubing, and you tie it on the end and make sure it didn't break and snap you. And then you go around and you'd look for stingray, anything that swam, you'd spear it, you know, right off the bayfronts at high tide. We get corbina, stuff you could eat, and then stuff you just, you know, kids are kids. And the water was, the turbidity was, you know, it was a lot clearer. You could actually be in the mid-bay and see the bottom at 18 feet. You go like, look, there's an engine down there. And then we used to go water skiing in the back bay. There was a water ski area and a boat area to go, you could drive around in your boat, go speeding around. And what happened, there was just some things happened on the Irvine Ranch. It was their dewatering some of their agricultural lands, and it caused a water course that during a big storm it just all came down into Newport Bay, and it actually basically ruined the back bay. It ruined the Western Salt Works where the salt mine was, and that belonged to the Irvine Company at the time. So when that was no longer feasible, it was ruined. So the water just kept flowing. It used to be, you know, I listened to old timers tell us the stories. They'd see, yeah, there'd be telephone poles and, you know, chicken crates or something. And then we were kids, it was oranges and shotgun shells, because the South Coast Gun Club was up there, and there was orange fields everywhere. And then as we got older, it was tennis balls and lawn furniture, plastic lawn furniture. So it was all stuff that just kind of fell in through the watershed and ends up in our bay. And that's one of the things that's dear to my heart, is the water quality in Newport. To try and stop that water coming into our bay, because that causes a lot of the turbidity problems, which is not good.
Do you have a favorite Pablo Island story that brings back fond memories of your childhood, or perhaps that inner child in you?
Well, inner child? God, it still does. Just coming over the bridge. You know, as soon as you hit that bridge, it's like, I kind of pull my feet up sometimes and go, safe! You know, we're back. So just being here. There's other issues that could steal that dream away, but I don't let it. So I guess I still enjoy the past, you know, have a nice feel for that.
Sure. Do you have special holiday memories that relate to the island?
Well, yeah. One time I got to be Santa Claus.
Cool.
When I think I was about 14. And I was a skinny little guy, you know. And, now I could be Santa Claus, you know. I got a big voice too. But I remember getting dressed up and the pillows and everything, and going up and down Marine Avenue and handing out candy canes and the magic fairy dust. And you know, some little kid goes, "You're not Santa Claus." Just it was so funny. And then you go in the Village Inn, and it was like all your friends' dads that were in there that drank, or it was just they were socializing, like, you know, John's dad, or could have been Tony's dad or somebody. And then they'd come over, "Okay, come here, Santa Claus." You know, they'd tell you some secret in your ear. It was just fun, you know. Everything was just, it was nice.
How do you remember all the memories of all the communal holidays? I know of 4th of July being big here and Christmas.
Well, 4th of July, yeah, that was, you know, now, everything we did then, now it'd be like 9/11 compared to what it was. That's how people would look, like, oh my God. Back then it was just fun. Nobody got killed, nobody got hurt, no houses burned down. A couple boat covers, yeah, they got some holes on them. I mean, it was, everybody had fireworks. The families had barbecues on the bayfront, you know, that lived there. The parties, and they go down when the sun went down. You know, these had fireworks on the beach and light up, and then the dunes would shoot off their fireworks. And you know, I guess civil disobedience was tolerated at certain times, but finally they just shut it off. It was just like they did with like right now it's Easter week. Like, let's take Easter. I might be getting ahead of you here. It's Easter week now, and if you can imagine, just to get on the island, the road that came down here on Bayside, before they put in Promontory Bay there and they're just building Linda Island. That street went all the way through and then came around the corner there at Harbor Island Drive. The traffic went all the way down there to get on the island, and you had to have a sticker, you know, to get on. This was just during the height of Bow Week and some summer events. And literally Balboa Island was just kids everywhere, in bathing suits and, you know, outfits. It's like I wrote in my love letter. I mean, that's a great memory. Sometimes I just turn on the surf music when I'm going down Marine Avenue, because you cruise Marine Avenue and check out all the kids, like, hey, I want to go to a party, you know, meet people and go have fun. And
would you share part of your love letter here as well, since I know we had our pet, but just for our future audiences to enjoy a snippet of, it's one of the favorites.
Well, one of the things I recollect to put it into, you know, some sort of, how do I connect the dot here? It's like, there was a famous song by Jan and Dean that Brian Wilson helped write with Beach Boys called "Two Girls for Every Boy." And believe me, it was like that during the surf culture. And especially when all the kids came to the beach. Everybody went to the beach. And they were tan and, you know, wearing not too many clothes. And having just fun, you know, it was a lot of fun. And you'd meet girls, you know, some girls would come down and this summer, you know, with their families, they'd rent a place every August 15th, and you continue. That was your relationship, was when they came down to the summer, you'd hang out together. And, you know, maybe correspond, write a letter. So we had to write letters back then and talk about what you were doing in your life. And kids, I guess kids communicated different than they do nowadays with the electronic things. It's kind of odd that there was a lot of, you know, you meet a gal at night, and you could, if you liked each other, you could take, let's go for a walk down the bayfront. You know, you had to be a smooth operator. And you'd sit and talk, and people say hi to you. So you try to find a place where it's not too busy, and then you just, you know, if you could, you start smooching, you know, and that was he was making out with some girl he met. And it was fun, and it was a beautiful night, and there was a lot of those nights. I loved every one of them. That was great. I can't think of a bad one in the bunch, you know.
How has the island become a home to you? You were able to move here early on.
Yeah, well, you know,
when did that transition take place?
that was in 1961, and I've been coming here ever since I was a baby, really. And it was a lot of, you know, it was always family oriented. So you had the family and, you know, eating meals, planning events, or being with friends, going, you know. Then the whole surfing thing, and just being here. And, you know, it was like we had rivals. Like if from Dover Shore Street over, you went to Corona Del Mar High School or Lincoln. And over then on the other side, you went to Harbor High School. But as surfers, we all surf at the same surf spots. A lot of us, like, you know, it could be Newport, Huntington, Laguna and stuff, and the Laguna kids. You get to know people in different towns just by being surfers. And of course, we shared girlfriends too. There was quite a connection. It was a good brotherhood back then. And even down at Doheny, and that was real. Surfing, they called it Killer Dana Point when it was there before the harbor was put in. It would hold up to a big swells. And they looked like these monster waves coming in. The first time we were out, I was 14. I thought, we're going to die, you know. We're paddling like, oh my God, this looks like Catalina Island coming at you. And these big guys in their big boards, you couldn't go to a guy, you know. And you're paddling up these waves and you're just looking at your friend like, dude, man, my heart's fat. And you'd watch people and you go, okay, it's my turn, and it'd live or die. And they'd take off, but they were real gentle giants. They didn't break like, you know,
sure.
Bonsai Pipeline. It was a real soft break, really. The kind of waves almost broke on themselves, but you go fast. It was fun. So that was it. I was hooked on big waves after I rode that place. So, so you had a lot of things that you learned here that you loved to do. So being a waterman was, you know, either you're sailing, surfing, fishing, skiing, snorkeling. I didn't scuba dive until I was older. After I got out of the Coast Guard, but it was real beach oriented. That was the whole beach life, you know, and it also kind of matched with Hawaii. Everybody goes to Hawaii, and I think the aloha of Hawaii comes back with people. At least it did then. There was a lot of aloha then, and it's cool. So the older guys, they kind of try and keep that going. They play ukuleles and wear the cool shirts and have fun parties. And, you know, it's nice.
Would you share your favorite story about any celebrities you might have met at the island?
Well, there's quite a few of those. My mother, she was very flamboyant, outgoing, and good looking, and she was, you know, had her own little famous spot here for gourmets back in the 60s. And the word got out, and the Hollywood crowd that came down here would come into the restaurant. My parents they weren't the ones that liked, oh look, there's so-and-so, and get his picture and sign it and put it on the wall. They refused to do that, and they would treat everybody just like the next guy, just like you would a friend that came to your house for dinner. And they were surely the good host and hostess, you know. And so one of my mothers, got to be a good friend of my mother, was Jane Russell, the actress. And she'd come down and they'd hang out. And probably one of my, besides, as a kid also, there's Jane Russell, you know, there's Andy Devine and John Wayne and, you know, Buddyepson. We lived right behind us. We were alley neighbors, you know. And, you know, we were kids. We'd go, you'd be at the beach and you'd see the Wild Goose, John Wayne's boat, coming down. And so we'd all, look, oh, here comes the Duke, and we'd all swim out. And he'd come out, and we're like, Duke, and he'd come out, and he goes, hey, kids, you know, he's like, don't get too close to the boat, and we'd toot the horn. He goes, oh, okay, but you gotta swim back. And he'd, you know, give it a pull, and that was a big thing, you know. So you talked about that all day, you know, oh, we saw John Wayne, and he blew the horn, you know. And Jane Russell, she was, you know, a very good-looking woman. And she would, we'd go for, she'd always get us to go for a swim with her. Well, when you see Jane Russell in a one-piece bathing suit when you're 13 years old, let me tell you, that was, there was the girls in bikinis, then here's this woman in this bathing suit, wow. And she knew how to wear it, and she, just in her manners, she was a very nice lady. She go, oh boys, it was just like you were in a movie. It was amazing. You were just, and so that was fun. And I used to, like Rory Calhoun, the cowboy. He was a cowboy guy. Back then, boys liked cowboy movies, and Mr. Calhoun was there. He was a nice-looking man, very nice, and he talked to us. And, that was fun. Did
you ever interact with Buddyepson since he was your neighbor?
Oh,
There's a lot of interesting stories, I'm sure, with sharing an alleyway.
Yeah, sometimes he'd be banging on the door. Randy? And I go, uh-oh. Because I parked my truck in his garage. I go, buddy, I had a park there. I'm just going to change my trunks, and we're going to go. And he goes, get that truck out of my garage. And that was fun. And we always talked about sailing a lot because he had the polycat, big sailboat, catamaran there, and they were real into it. We got to go for a sail a couple of times. So that was fun. Another time was we had a friend that lived on Harbor Island, where actually it's where Donald Brenn's the builder, Mr. Irvine Company now. Lived, and then his father, Milton Bren, and Claire Trevor, the actress, was, what was her name? It was Claire Brent, I guess, yeah. And she was friends with my mom also. In fact, my mom, their boat was called Lady Claire. And so she had a birthday coming up, came to my mom, wanted to have a party in the room, and they brought in movie posters of her movies that she did. And she goes, I want you to make me some kind of special dish, and I like the filet of sole and scallops, whatever you can do with that. So my mom made this dish that was 2 pieces of sole, and she put scallops on it, and then she had this sauce, and would broil those, and then had a sauce with kind of it was a light cheese wine sauce with crab and mushrooms in it, and that went on the top, and then tortellini on the side with butter and cheese, and they call it Lady Soul. And a lot of people didn't know that came from, Claire Bren, the actress. And so one day we're walking to my friend's house on Harbor Island, and Andy Devine lived right by the bridge there. He was kind of a big, robust man. His name was Jingles in the cowboy movies. He was a big guard. He worked on the Wild Bill Hickok shows a lot. And we knew he had a train set in his garage. So teenage boys just loved, adolescent boys loved trains. Mr., I was calling him Mr. We were polite back then. Mr. Devine, can we see your train set today? And he goes, well, not today. Maybe another time, boys. And so one day the door was open and we had him, okay, he's got to let us see. He goes, all right, come in here and sit right here on this bench, and I want you to sit on your hands and just watch and nobody talk. So he puts on his hat and has this whistle thing and his big transformer, and okay, you're ready now? Yeah. And boom, boom, okay, and off they go, all these trains going around. That was pretty cool, yeah. And we used to dig clams on low tides when supposedly they were edible. Pre-EPA clams. Abundance of clams in the bay, lots of clams. These nice big cherry stone clams. And we would filter them out and sell them by the buckets, like $20 a bucket. And Milton Bren was one of our biggest customers. So that was kind of fun.
Would you share about any life-changing events that might have occurred here?
Life-changing events.
It could be personal, it could be communal.
Well, I did get into, later in my life, from running boats, being in the boating industry so long, I saw what was happening with the water quality, and all, not just Newport, but all over, when you're up and down the coast, you see different things. And I just, I was out sailing with, actually, the man whose mother lived on Abalone Street, Crystal Street. They used to be our neighbors in LA. He called me up one day and he goes, Randy, he goes, I've taught you how to sail. I've taken you sailing since you were a baby. He goes, I'm old, I'm having a problem walking, and I have a 36-foot sailboat, and you're a professional captain. Take me sailing on my boat. So I said, you got it. So of course I brought my good-looking blonde girlfriend. He liked that too. And so I took him sailing, and we were going down the bay. And he goes, it's really a shame. And I go, what's that, Lester? His name was Lester. And he goes, you got all this nice people and wealth here, and yet the water's so dirty. I've never seen it like this. Because when he was a kid and lived, here, they saw cleaner than I ever did, Of course, there was times when Pablo Island, the plumbing went out to the bayfront, So there hadn't been a balance point there somewhere. But that kind of stuck in my head. And so one day a friend called me and he said, yeah, why don't you meet this guy? He wants to start this group. They want to, clean water thing.
What year approximately?
This was 1999, actually. And I was living here on the island, and so I met this guy, Gary Brown, and he wanted to start this group called Orange County Coast Keepers, part of the Water Keepers Alliance that started back in the Hudson River with John Cronin, Bobby Kennedy Jr. And so I thought, I said, God, yeah, I'm in. I have nothing to do. I'm taking care of my mom, and I can do some stuff right now. It was a paid position. So I was the program director. I was like the founding member, and the thing was to find out what's wrong with Orange County's water health. That was just contact water, not drinking water. And we found that Orange County was kind of coveted from everybody else, San Diego and LA County, Santa Barbara. And it was like kind of the good old boys thing, how things were done here. And there was a lot of problems, big problems, a lot of issues. And so as we dug and dug, we came up with all these, boy, we got a lot of work to do. So the Keepers Alliance, what the keepers do, a keeper is usually an environmental attorney, and you go out and you find problems, and you go to where the source of the problem is, and you knock on the problem's door, and you say, hello, I'm so-and-so, and you have a problem here. It's against the law, federal law. And if the person slams the door in your face with maybe gives you an unfriendly gesture of a hand signal, then the next thing you do is you use the power of the Clean Water Act, which is a federal lawsuit. It's a notice of intent to sue. And it's a great it's a great program because you have to raise funds, evidence, and file the intent. And what that usually does is gets everybody at the table, the bargaining table, so you can talk. Okay, what's the problem here? We don't want to get sued, and because they research you and say like, these guys win 99% of the time. We're screwed. So the first guys we have to take on is the Irvine Company at Crystal Cove. And I had an old girlfriend here that lived on the island, and her favorite beach was Crystal Cove. So I told her one day, I'm going to go save your beach. And all the runoff from all the upper developments, the way they had it planned for the drainage, the master drainage plan, was probably good for the developer, but bad for the beach. And the water's there, and at the same time we were trying to do a kelp reforestation project, and it was an underwater sea park. And this is the last little bit of land that we can keep fresh and nice and try to. So we filed the lawsuit, and lucky I retained my First Amendment rights so I could talk about it. And the Irvine Company, we went through a few bouts. And then took another kick in the pond. We went and looked at some other things they were doing that, And so they actually did a good job. They put in a good treatment center system. And at the same time, we had Caltrans up for the berms along Coast Highway that were emptying onto the beach. So now they're all bioswales. And we knew that one day that was all going to be annexed in the city of Newport Beach. So we actually saved the city of Newport Beach millions and millions of dollars. Of course, it cost the airline company millions of dollars by not, building on those areas where these big detention areas were. And so it became one thing after another. There was gullies, like there's that little Corona. When we were kids, there was hardly ever water in those gullies. In fact, usually there were fire hazards. So you weren't allowed to go there because one spark, you could light up the whole place. So it was, just friend of mine said, he goes, the bigger the telescope, the more you see. So it was kind of just getting rid of your ignorance of what's really out there. Like a lot of people look at the bay and they go, it's beautiful. There's a little bag there, so what? It's not what you see on the surface. It's everything below that. And
it's neat that you've been involved with that.
Yeah, so I was really
shaped your
it was like
experience here, really. So
then I became a voice with the city, and I educated a lot of people.
Excellent.
And most part, I was a pretty nice guy about it. And sometimes I get a little rough around the edges, and I kind of bark at people. So I become like a watchdog. So look out, I'll bark at you.
Well, would you have a favorite story about a business on Marine Avenue, even if it doesn't exist today? We're wanting to know more about some of the early history. And
well, I can. Back in the 60s, of course, during the surfing craze, there was 3 or 4 surfboard shops on Pablo Island. And, of course, we used to call us Grimmies or Groms, the young towhead surfers. And so a big thing was, surfboards cost $60 to $80 back then, a new one. And usually you borrowed some, or you found someone would sell you one for $40 or something. It was a lot of money. A gallon of gas was only a quarter. So you can do the math, compared to now. So anyway, there was a surfboard shop, Tucker's Surfboards. Larry Tucker was he was like an Olympic javelin thrower. This guy was like Tarzan, good looking man. And he had surfboards, sold surfboards. And to work in the shop, that was like, wow, I get to work in this shop. And then when you work in one shop, then the next shop wants, hey, you want to work in my shop? Because they like people, know people, because then you bring in people, they buy stuff. And so, so there was that. And of course, you meet a lot of girls in the surf shop. And then there was a music store, Island Guitars. This guy, Ron Harris, he was a great character. What a guy. I loved stories with that guy. And I worked in his guitar shop for a while too, while I was in a transitional period of my life, working in rock bands and stuff.
What year did his business exist here?
I'm in the early 60s.
60s.
Yeah, and there was other bikini stores, and you'd see, there was a guy, Haley, what's his first name? Jack Haley. He was a famous surfer, international surfer. He owns Captain Jack's. There was Captain Jack's up in Sunset Beach. It's where you go get king crab. It's the best on the planet. And it's still there to this day. And his wife, Sherry Haley, was, kind of like a Bridget Bardot here on that. And they all wore these little bikinis, of course. And then as we got into the psychedelic age, the age of Aquarius, I mean, everything turned into like more kind of sexy, tiger, like, and you saw this transition in these shops doing these things. It was really fun.
Seems like since you had a prime viewpoint with your mom having a restaurant on site, you'd really visually see the transformation over time with Amelia's just being a key part of this food culture on the island as well.
Yeah, back then, a lot of the restaurants, local, it was just kind of, meat, surf and turf, meat and potatoes. My mother, actually it was the seafood restaurant they bought, so she liked the seafood part, and then introduced some of her Italian dishes in, and then started doing innovative cooking, kind of mixing the two to get fusion.
Right.
So that was, and she was a real, kind of a, people would come down and copy her stuff all the time. And you'd see other restaurants change. It wasn't just the pasta thing, everybody cooked pasta, but that's what you put on it, it makes a difference. So, yeah, I really saw a lot of changes that way. And but we were all friends with all the other restaurant owners, and you know, you swap stories or whatever.
It still retains that nice family feeling even to this day. So it's neat
Oh,
that you've been
thank you.
able to preserve.
Yeah, my sister Hetty and her husband John. Actually, they've run the restaurant longer than my parents. Because my sister, she started day one, and she's still there, so she wins. She's been in the restaurant longer than anybody in the whole family, and she can, you know, she knows how. She's an excellent cook. It's just a lot of hard work to stand behind that brother. But people ask me, where's your favorite restaurant in Newport? I go to my sister's house because it's really good.
It's neat. It's really fantastic because you've been able to create a new fusion style of food with, I love how you used what was local and then kind of incorporated your mom's Italian background and create something so unique to the island. So that really shapes a culture as far as what people are eating, what they're wearing, and so I think it's important to reflect and
setting trends.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like the island's very trendy as far as some of the businesses that were established here in its early days as well.
Yeah, Amelia was my mother. She was people would almost time. Oh, it's almost 5 o'clock. Go out on the bayfront and see what my mom was wearing to work because she was she was an actress. I mean, she put together outfits and go put her little apron on and cook. And it's just like, wow, look at that. Even go-go boots, hot pants, and I mean, it was incredible. And she had. We always laugh. She turned a house that 4 people lived in into a giant walk-in closet, and each room was a different. This is accessories and belts and hats and coats, and this is boots and this and that and cruise wear. It was amazing. So that was a lot of fun. So besides that, she was her own advertising agency. It was good, and people just loved her. She was full of a lot of life, In fact, a lot of times I've kind of caught that gab thing from her, where you're like, I'm gonna go to the store, I'll be right back, and it's an hour later. Where have you been? Well, I just ran into so and so and so and such. They all want to talk to you and see what's going on. Yeah, so that was part about why. That's what I thought, and you see it's going through an evolution or a revolution right now. All the old things are being torn down and big things are being put up. And you kind of go, well, no one's going to be running that. That's, you're going to see now at the beach. And they have upstairs big decks up there with the barbecues. So that you can kind of isolate yourself from the neighborhood that way. So who knows what'll happen. I'm sure in another 40 or 50 years that might turn around again if we don't float away,
Well, thank you for all these great stories. We're glad you're able to share a bit of your family's history here at the island and some personal recollection. So,
oh, great! It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.